So today I want to talk to you about mindset, and there's many reasons for it. Number one, I think if your mindset, not that I think, I know, if your mindset isn't right, real estate isn't going to go well for you. But I really want to relate it back to the big day in real estate that we just had, August 17th. If you've no idea what I'm talking about, I just want to recap some of the changes that came into effect on August 17th. There was a class action lawsuit referencing real estate compensation. And now moving forward, when you work with a buyer before the first showing, so you will enter no homes with a buyer without signing some type of buyer brokerage agreement. Also with that, MLS will no longer have the commission listed on there for buyer's agents to view. Rather, it will become part of the negotiation process. And there are a few different ways for a buyer broker to be compensated. It can be from listing broker to the buyer's broker, which is kind of how we've always done it previously. It could go seller to the buyer's broker as well. So with that being said, change is hard. Change makes people doubt what they're doing. Change makes people feel not confident. But what I want you to remember is, number one, real estate is going to keep going on. Is it going to be different? Absolutely. Are you going to experience these challenges? Sure. Of course you're going to experience challenges, because the conversations you're going to hear and the conversations you're going to have, they're going to be different than the ones you've had before. Different is not bad. Different isn't failure. Different doesn't mean real estate is going to completely disappear. You're going to be out of a job. You're not going to make any money. This also doesn't mean that if you're working with buyers who don't have money to pay you, which is a big misunderstanding out there, means that you're not going to get paid. There is a really good chance the seller in some capacity is going to be providing compensation to whomever brings the buyer. So don't panic. What do you need to do? You need to empower yourself to be around a brokerage, other realtors that have their hand on the pulse. Like, they are watching videos. They're going to constructive masterminds on what's going on. So I'm going to give you some data because I love data. I'm a numbers person. Some of you may or may not know that I used to do medical research, so I love information. So every day you have roughly 60,000 thoughts, and about 75% of them are repetitive. So that means if your mindset is, I'm not going to get any buyers anymore, buyers aren't going to sign compensation agreements, I am not going to make any more money, real estate's dead. If it's all negative and 75% of it is negative, how do you think your energy is going to be when you're talking to consumers, buyers, or sellers? Are you going to sound confident? Are you going to sound like the type of person they want to partner with and the type of realtor that they want to hire to get the job done? Probably not. So we all struggle with negative thoughts. And a long time ago, when I first started in real estate here, I was working with a real estate coach, and she was really into mindset. And that's how I learned about all these different thoughts and how they can really change what's going on. Because let's be honest, every single day you have tons of crap thrown at you, like bad things, and you could focus on those and be like Eeyore, be like, oh, woe is me. You know, like so far today, I actually have not had the best day ever. My dog threw up. I had a real estate quote unquote emergency I had to deal with. I was late to my first appointment because of it. And that really stresses me out. I hate being late. Especially when other things came at me and I allowed that to make me late. But instead of thinking about it, I turn it around and I said things like, I feel so lucky that people reach out to me when they're having a problem because they know I can help them find the answer. I feel so lucky that I was home when Louis puked so I could clean it up and it didn't dry up and get gross. Even though maybe at the time you can like wallow in the grossness and the badness and the bleh, but don't do it. Turn it around. if any of you have a morning routine and you kind of love it and hate it at the same time, and I love a morning routine, I have one too, but you kind of become addicted to it in a good and a bad way. But for the most part, it's good because that routine sets yourself up for success. So it might be that you work out, and instead of saying, oh, I have to work out today, say, I get to work out today. Like it's a privilege and it's an honor, and that it's a way to keep your mind and your body healthy. Just shift what you're saying. So if you're new to a positive mindset and understanding the power behind it, the best way I can encourage you to make it better is to be awareness of it. And I'm pretty sure I brought something in my pocket. I did. You see this thing? It might not go as well for the dudes, but all the ladies out there. So when I was working with this coach, when I first started in real estate here, she talked about being aware of your mindset and understanding all the goods and the bad things that you're saying. So whenever you say anything bad, she just suggested you move the rubber band over or a bracelet or whatever to the other side, and you become so conscious of how horrible you think of yourself and all the bad things you say because you're physically moving it over. And what that does is it changes the brain pathways, and you'll like start to say something bad about yourself. Like, I'm going to relate it to the lawsuit and whatnot going on in real estate, that, oh gosh, I just got a referral from another customer and they're a buyer. Now I got to talk to them about the buyer broker agreement. That really sounded negative. That was terrible. Instead, you're going to say, I am so lucky that my real estate customers think of me so highly that they refer me to their friends and family. I'm so excited for the opportunity to talk to them about the services I provide and how I am the realtor they should partner with. You've just got to change it. It sounds kind of hokey, I get it. But it's so important when we're all figuring out this change and learning how to maneuver it and manage it, that you stay positive. Now listen, there's going to be hard days, and it's okay to say, oh, today kind of stunk, but don't wallow in it. Let it go. It'll be fine. Tomorrow's a new day, right? I don't know if you've ever heard this expression that realtors wake up every morning unemployed, which sounds really negative, but instead you can change it to, you wake up unemployed. What am I going to do to get a job today? What am I going to do to, find a customer? So your goal is to, one, recognize how often you speak negatively about yourself or about the real estate market, because we can pair the fact that we've got, these new rules with the fact that the real estate market can be a little soft right now. The higher interest rates are causing buyers to not have the same kind of gusto. They're not jumping at properties, right? They're taking their time. The urgency is not there like it was before. You pair that with the fact that people are scared with the election and what's going to happen, and then you add in, you just like the sprinkles, like the cherry on the top, is this new litigation that we're all dealing with that isn't a law. It's proposed. But with that as well, be sure that you've spoken to your broker about the fines. Depending on what MLS you're in, the fines can be pretty hefty. My best advice is to reach out to if you're in Florida. The Florida Association of Realtors has an amazing library of really, really empowering videos about the new forms, the new conversations, and what you can and can't do. You just have to remember, real estate's going to keep going. People always buy and sell. I was licensed in real estate when the market crashed. I mean, it was scary out there. I had just barely had my real estate license, and I remember going to some kind of masterminds. We didn't really call them meetings. We called then about, is the bubble going to burst? And I didn't really understand what they were talking about because I hadn't been selling real estate the couple of years prior, kind of watching the madness of it. Instead, I came in when the selling was still good, and then I watched it tank. I watched, sellers think they could list their home really high and then it not happen. And I'm actually so grateful that I didn't sell when the real estate was really good and it was easy. And I started when it was hard because it gave me really, really good habits that have helped fuel my career ever since. Because when it's easy, you don't always have good habits. And when it's hard, you're forced to have good habits because you got to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So what should you be doing? Number one, recognize if you have bad thoughts. Again, about 75% of your thoughts every day are reoccurring. So if all your thoughts that you're having all day are that buyers aren't going to want to sign the buyer broker agreement, real estate's dead, I'm never going to get paid again, that's not going to lead to success. The next time you work with a buyer and you have to get them to sign that buyer brokerage agreement, just like everyone else, right? This is across the board. This is an even playing field. Every real estate customer, when they're working with a buyer, has to get that agreement signed. So don't think you're going to lose customers. You have to learn the conversation. You have to practice the conversation, which I didn't even talk about. Practice makes perfect, right? That's why if you're having negative thoughts, practicing moving this over and being conscious of it will help you have better positive thoughts. A great way to feel more confident, which will lead to better thoughts, is to practice the conversation. Practice with another agent, practice with your broker, practice with your spouse, practice with your kids. Let them know what to say so that you can wow, that word is really hard for me. You can have the objection handling as a part of it. Because if you're only having the conversation with customers, that means you're practicing with your customers. So I really suggest that you get in some script practice. It doesn't have to be super formal. If you don't have anyone to script with, so when I started in real estate here, I hit the ground running really, really hard. And I didn't have anyone to script with, or my schedule was kind of wonky. I couldn't find anyone to script with at the times I was available. I used to script by myself. So saying that you can't practice conversations because you don't have anybody to practice with is a limiting belief, and it's not true. Because the best news ever, you don't have to practice with anyone. I didn't. I used to practice by myself, and I watched a YouTube video on it, and it worked really well. So you'd have a script, right? You can write it. You can find them online. There's a ton of them. If you need any scripts, I have a library of probably 150. I'd be happy to share with you. Just send me a message. But if you don't have anyone to script with and you want to practice and it's worrying you that you're not going to have the words, script by yourself. This is what I suggest you do. I actually suggest you do it at home with the TV on, with like the news on or something where there's like a conversation. The reason being is when you're talking to a customer, there's a good chance there'll be distractions, and that is your distraction. You don't always get to talk to customers in silence with nothing around you. So you have the background noise, and when you start talking to them, you stand up, because if it's on the phone, that your energy changes and it becomes more positive, and you just practice the conversation. You say it very quickly with kind of no emotion and no feeling. You don't change whatever is written there, and you just do that. If you do that for 5 or 10 minutes, 5 times a week, you're going to be so better set up than other realtors because you're practicing, you're empowering yourself to know the conversation. Objection handling is built into all scripts, and I know a lot of negative feedback on scripting, that it never goes as planned. Well, I know that, but it's just recognizing that objection from practice and then being able to figure out what the answer is. So that's why it's empowering. It's practicing. Just like, if you were just playing the piano and you'd never done it before and you had the music in front of you, you wouldn't know what to do, but by practicing it, you get better and you know where the keys are. This is the same thing. It's having a bag of tools to get you through your problems. There will be problems, and that's okay. Your ability to work through problems is what's going to give you success in real estate. There's problems every single day. Stay positive. Remember, real estate is not ending. It is not ending. Buyer's agent brokerage, like representing a buyer and getting compensated for that representation, is not going to end. It's a relatively new principle in real estate, and there's a reason why it's there. It's going to continue. But you as a buyer's agent are going to have to show and prove what you do and why you should be compensated. I think that a lot of us out there have done a very good job of having the process look so smooth that consumers have no idea what we do. Like we did that intentionally. We intentionally wanted consumers to feel like it was smooth sailing, right? Like it was just a walk in the park. But in that, the argument can be made is that maybe we did them a disservice by not showing them and telling them all the things we did to get there to prove that we are helping them. We are needed, that it is a good idea to not work with the listing agent, and it's a good idea to have your own agent representing you, because sometimes what's good for the seller is not necessarily good for the buyer, and vice versa. So for instance, I'm trying to give you a great argument for why a customer would need or want a buyer's agent would be repairs. If you're negotiating repairs, does the seller want to do repairs? No, it costs them time and money, and the buyer wants all the repairs. So it's a good idea to have an agent. Again, let's talk about this one more time. You need to ensure with all of the changes right now, after August 17th, that number one, the changes. Make sure, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please reach out. I will send you some literature about that. I will direct you to the Florida Association of Realtors page so that you know what's going on. So that's number one. Number two, remember, real estate's going to keep going. People are going to continue to buy and sell property. Customers, number three, customers are still going to use buyer's agents. Number four, control how you think. You have 60,000 thoughts every day. 75% of them, that's like 45,000 thoughts, are reoccurring. So if you are panicking right now, if you are in the real estate field and you're like, it's over, I'm done, I'm never going to sell real estate again, this is too hard, and you want to keep selling real estate, just change the conversation you're having with yourself. Change the dialogue. Go from buyer's agency is dead to buyer agency is changing, and I know what the changes are. Buyers are going to want to work with me. Sellers are going to want to work with me. Sellers are going to offer compensation to buyer brokers. It's simple. It sounds so simple. So if you are panicking, come up with 5 or 10 expressions that you can say to yourself when you're panicking. Because let's be honest, it's new and different. You're not going to feel super, super prepared. Even if you have been scripting, you're going to be a live person, a live buyer. Just remember, when you start doing those buyer consultations, and if you don't know what a buyer consultation is, and you don't have a buyer packet like you have a listing packet, again, I encourage you to reach out to me or your broker and find out what you can do or what your brokerage has already put together for you that you can put your name on, because you're going to need to start treating buyers like you did sellers. Like you would never meet a seller and try to sell their house without a listing agreement. Well, now the same thing will happen with buyers. You need to have an employment contract signed, AKA the BBA, also known as the buyer brokerage agreement. So you're going to have to show your worth. You're going to have to explain why it's required and what you're going to do to earn the compensation. Very, very important. Very, very important. I encourage you to, like I said before, go to the Florida Association of Realtors. If you're in Florida, I think they've done a really, really good job of providing a breakdown of the different documents, because not only do we have new rules, we have new forms. And if you're in Northeast Florida, we are dealing with, we like double whammy. We went from our own forms of the NEFAR forms to the Florida Association of Realtors forms. And then the end of July and in the beginning of August, they gave us new forms again. So ensure you know how to use the forms. Ensure you know what's required of you in order to work with a buyer, because there's multiple different forms that you can use when working with a buyer. It's not only the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. There's a couple of other forms that are in between. That's for another day. That's each form you could do a whole class on. But again, if you haven't had any classes at your brokerage or you haven't been to any classes in any of the title companies, check out the Florida Association of Realtors, because knowledge is power, and that power will give you the confidence you need to feel good about talking with buyers. So you're feeling crappy about the rules. You're thinking about quitting real estate. Don't do it. Real estate's a gift, and you need to give that gift to other people, whether that's investors, whether that's for yourself, for your past customers. If your past customers enjoyed working with you, you need to keep going with it. They want you to. Remember, change is not bad. There's some really good pieces that came about because of the litigation. I know that was controversial. I probably just pissed some people off. But I don't think having buyers sign an exclusive buyer brokerage or an agreement to work with you for 10 properties or whatever you're using is a bad thing. We're paid for our time and we're paid for our expertise. Now, as a buyer's agent, you're negotiating your commission or your compensation up front, as opposed to just getting an amount from the seller. So basically, we've moved from listing agents negotiating buyers' brokerage commissions up front with the listing agreement to buyers having their own relationship with their buyer brokerage agreements when they meet with them. Again, doesn't mean that sellers aren't offering compensation anymore. It's just a shift. It's a change of how the conversations would go. I get it. I don't love change. Change is hard. It's nice to kind of do the same thing, right? Because you feel confident, you know what's going on with it. But just be sure to read the documents. Ask questions about the documents. Ensure that you're aligned with a brokerage that provides you that information. Be sure that that broker has sold real estate to know what's going on in there and has maybe had BBA signed before, that they know the common objections that are heard when you have one signed. If they've never done that before, could they really help you with it? And if they can't, that's okay. There's a lot of great videos online, or reach out to a brokerage that might be more aligned to help you with those things. But just remember, real estate's always been challenging, right? I always say we get paid a good amount of money to deal with problems. We have a new set of problems, and you have to empower yourself to know what's going on with that. The only way to keep that going is to stay positive. I always say you could wake up every day crying, right? There's always something going wrong, but don't. Find the good in every day. Find the good in the change. Get yourself educated so you know what's going on, so that when you are sitting with a buyer, you know what to say. The same thing when you're sitting with a seller, you know what to say. You need to empower yourself and align yourself with information and people that give you confidence. If you're just, floating around and have no idea what's going on, if this is the first time you're hearing about August 17th and the real estate change, you're going to have to dial in and figure out what's going on, because you don't want to get in trouble. Now, you're not going to go to jail. You just might get in trouble with the MLS, right? There'll be some fines, and no one wants to do that. So empower yourself, get educated. If you're thinking bad thoughts all the time, put a hairband on, put a bracelet on. Every time you have bad thoughts, move it around. You're going to be so surprised how often you think bad things, and that movement will recognize it. If you're going to do this, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how often you move the rubber band over, or the hairband. I remember when I first started doing this, it's got to be, it's probably 6 years ago. It was in the fall, six years ago when I started doing this. And the first day I was appalled. I was like, really, Tanya? There were so many negative thoughts. But, I've done a lot of soul searching since then, and have learned that you can quickly take a bad thought and make it positive. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. If this is really speaking to you, I highly suggest you read a book or watch, it's on YouTube. It's called The Secret. And it talks all about, and if you're already a follower of The Secret, I'd love to hear from you as well. It's so fascinating. And it just talks about how your thoughts become things, and whatever you're putting out in the universe is a mirror to what's going to happen. So an example could be that you hate crossing the Buckman Bridge because you're going to get a flat tire. So the whole time you're thinking, I hate the bridge, I'm getting a flat tire. I hate the bridge, flat tire, flat tire, flat tire. What's going to happen? The universe is like, here you go, you're welcome. Here's a flat tire. It's going to mirror whatever's going on. The same thing if you're like, oh, I hate driving on the highway because there's always cops and I'm going to get a ticket. When your thoughts are like that, you're giving it up to the world, and the world's going to give it to you. As opposed to saying things like, buyers want to work with me, sellers want to work with me, I love real estate, change is good. As long as you're keeping it positive and recognizing the fact that change is there, and it could be hard isn't bad, but that you're going to dial in, learn the things, become empowered, and know what's going on, customers will want to work with you. If you want any more information about something I've spoken about, if you're looking for scripts, you're looking for someone to script with, or people to script with, or the link to the Florida Association of Realtors for the videos I'm talking about, or information about The Secret, I would love to hear from you. I would love to sit down with you, because knowledge is power and positive thoughts keep it going.